We all want to live in a clean environment. But if we want to enjoy that clean environment, then somebody's going to have to do the cleaning. And if that someone is you, then we're going to share with you some helpful tips so that you can do these cleaning tasks in your world wisely and avoid painful flare-ups of neck and low back pain in the process. Let's dive in and get started. You know, if you're going to live in a clean house, then somebody's going to have to mop and clean. And in most cases, especially if you're watching this video, it's probably you, and that's probably why you're watching this now. And so I hope that today we will be able to help you with some tools that will enable you to put them to use wisely to manage the cleaning activities in your home and your environment in a way that can protect you and give you less pain and better quality of life. Now, in order to do that, we want to understand a few principles, and a good part of the strategies that we're going to talk to you have to do with this concept that I often talk to people about when I teach classes like this on ergonomic lifting and activities of daily living, and that is that the most important body part that you use to protect your neck or your spine, in the case of repetitive movements, your wrists and elbows, or whatever body part that you tend to use the most that's putting you at risk, the most important body part is not that body part, it's your brain. It's the decisions that you make, the tools that you use, how wisely you manage that activity, then make a big, big difference in terms of how efficient you are and how much pain you are or are not going to experience in the process. So there are a couple of fundamental concepts I want to talk to you about that we will expand into day-to-day practices and best practices that will make your job more efficient and accomplish the goal that we've set ourselves to today in this patient enlightenment moment. So the first thing to talk about is the idea of repetitive movement. Repetitive movement, you may have heard about with carpal tunnel syndrome, and it occurs in all different kinds of tennis elbow. It's all about concentrating a whole bunch of work into one body part and doing it repetitively. And because of that repetitive use, the part is stressed more, the muscles are fatigued more, they're more prone to inflammation, strain, eventual wearing out and degenerative changes and so forth. So we have to watch any activity that is repetitive in nature, and in cleaning, there's a lot of them. And so managing that, you can't solve a problem if you don't know what the problem is. And the best way to solve the problem is to keep it from happening in the first place. You can't unring a bell. And so let's keep the bell from ringing by developing strategies based upon our understanding of repetitive stress disorders and as they apply to cleaning in particular. Another area of risk associated with cleaning that's kind of subtle and isn't obvious is lifting. We don't really think about the fact that we're lifting a lot while we're cleaning, but in fact, it is true. We are continuously lifting our body, moving, changing body positions, lifting buckets, shifting equipment, shifting objects, and so forth. And each time we do that, certain pressures and loads are placed upon our spine and musculoskeletal system that can aggravate conditions and really flare up chronic low back issues. And so some thought beforehand in terms of the risk factors associated with lifting related to your cleaning tasks is always time well spent. That's why lifting awareness is really important. Another pretty significant risk factor associated with mopping and cleaning is one that's kind of an inside job again, and that is that we tend to think that we're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and we're not. We tend to still have the same expectations of our ability to perform and our efficiency as we functioned at 10, 15, 20 or more years ago. It's just not true. Gravity does eventually win. And that doesn't mean we don't fight it every step of the way, but we have to acknowledge that if we're going to successfully manage this condition. So being realistic about the task, the scope of a task, the fatigue factors connected with it, the loss of coordination and strength that come sometimes with the aging process, and managing that so we can still get the job done and not pay big dividends or big penalties, really, relative to pain and function, loss of quality of life, and so forth. It's a factor that we need to take into consideration. And if we do, if we can realize that we're still are not still 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and plan accordingly, it does pay big dividends. So that's a factor we need to talk about as well. Now, with regard to repetitive motion, the most important thing that we can do is we can break up repetitive motion. And we can do that in two important ways. The first way is simply by alternating movements. Now, I know that it's sometimes, if you're strongly right or left hand dominant, it may be difficult to perform some of these tasks as efficiently with the non-dominant hand, but it's a good idea to get in the practice of doing that, because what it does, if you've got an hour of scrubbing, then that's repetitive movement for 1 hour from one hand, but if you can alternate, then that's a half an hour for this hand and a half an hour for this hand. It breaks the load down into 50% of what it would have been had you only done it with one hand. And remembering to do that and planning your work accordingly works well. The other way to ration is temporally, over time. In other words, allot specific amounts of time and specific amounts of rest period, and don't be as aggressive as you might have been in the past in terms of making those assignments. Don't say, oh, I've got guests coming on Thursday, I got to clean my house on Wednesday. If you've got guests coming on Thursday, start Sunday and break it up into digestible portions that are not going to take such a toll on you that by the time your guests arrive, you're a wreck and uncomfortable and not having fun anyway. So be smart. Ration these things into periods of time and be generous and gentle with yourself in terms of expectations. Now, about posture. There are a few principles and a few tools to be aware of here. One of them is that the further away from your body the work is done, or the tasks that you're performing, the further they are from your body, the more physical stress they place upon your body. It's harder to do a task out here than it is to do a task in here. It takes a greater toll on your body. So move your body as close to your work as you can. And as you're working along, don't let your work get ahead of you. Bring your body to where the work is and continue to do that. Keep your body close to your work area, as close as you can comfortably be. Obviously not tight in, but where you are very efficient and comfortable and it's not creating a strain on you. Face your work. Have it in front of you. Don't get into a situation where you're twisting your spine and moving. And this also applies to being careful about climbing into spaces and under spaces and cleaning in areas that are difficult to get to, mopping in areas that are difficult to get to. Think about these things and manage them. It's inevitable that you're going to have to do some of this, but if you think about it, if you make a plan on how to approach it using these principles, it will provide a benefit for you and take away some of the pain and irritating factors involved. In that same category, go ahead and move obstacles out of the way that can be moved so that you give yourself a free and open work area in which you can maneuver and apply these principles. Then move the furniture back in or the obstacles back into the work area after that. Professional house cleaners do this all the time in hotels and in other areas of the hospitality industry. And don't be afraid to ask for some help. It's okay to ask for help. Get somebody to help you move that furniture out, move it back in when you're finished. It's all right to do that. And sometimes it helps people feel useful, like they're helping you as well. Now, I mentioned expectations and rationing and building in rest periods. One of the things that I did not mention that I do want to throw in is that when you begin to become fatigued, your efficiency drops off, and that means that it takes longer to accomplish the task, so in the long run it's less efficient. But also, as one becomes fatigued, one's decision-making process is not as good, and it's very well demonstrated in science that industrial-related injuries, work-related injuries, injuries in a hospitality industry and so forth often occur at ends of shifts when people are fatigued. So this is another good reason why you want to break those work periods up into periods in which you are not fatigued. You quit before you're fatigued, because it's in that tail where you're fatigued where you tend to make decisions that can result in even bigger injuries, slips and falls, and the kinds of things that can have bad consequences. So give yourself a break. Give yourself a bunch of breaks. Don't work till you're tired. Work smart instead. Now, here's some general rules for cleaning that we strongly recommend that you take into consideration and use as well. One of them is the concept of dwell time. Now, when you're using cleaning compounds, oftentimes they need to be applied and sit on the surface, dwell on the surface to provide cleaning and antibacterial, antimicrobial effect. And so you want those surfaces to be covered with that cleaning surface and rest there, dwell there for a few minutes. That's a good time to take a break and rest. So combine those two tools into one and you'll be ahead of the game. We all know that gravity causes things to drop from high places to low places. And so if you clean a low place and then something drops to it from a high place, then the low place is not clean anymore. So the recommendation is always try to clean from high places to low places to increase your efficiency and decrease your stress and the amount of time it takes to get the same result in the long run. Here's a technique that I learned from a professional housekeeping trainer that I think is a great idea. We typically tend to scrub in a circular fashion, and what happens when we do that is we get to the top and we get all the dirty stuff off the top, and then we come back down and now we're getting the dirty stuff off the bottom, but the dirty stuff is going onto our cleaning item, our rag or what have you, and now we're going back and reapplying that dirty stuff to the place that we just cleaned. So the result is that in order to get that surface clean, we're redirtying it in using circular motions. Her recommendation is to use an S motion of cleaning. So you start high and you clean downwards, and that way you're not having to clean the same surface twice, and that cuts down on the repetitive movement and the stress on your body in the process. With regard to cleaning the inside of a tub, there are conflicting authorities. OSHA tells us that you should stand inside of a bathtub and clean it, getting close to the wall, as we talked about, moving your body close to the work, just being careful that the floor is not slippery. Other professional housekeeping resources and ergonomists tell us that the preferred use is to use a scrubber on a handle and clean bathroom walls, ceramic tile walls, other types of walls, using a scrubbing device with a handle on it. Point is, though, you don't want to be leaning over and hand cleaning over a bathtub and creating a really risky posture and a probability of slipping that is very high and in the process hurting yourself. If you must get down on your hands and knees, then have a good pad to put under your knees, especially if you have arthritic knees, or invest in a pair of knee pads and wear those when you're on your knees scrubbing. Also, dress for success. Wear good footwear. You want good supportive footwear with a good sole, a non-slipping sole that give you the support that you need while you're working your way through the day's tasks. Here's another technique you can use to use your brain to protect your body, and this has to do with planning in advance. If you have a room or an area that you know you're going to want to go in and clean, then in advance of that, figure out what you're going to need to do that in that room. Get your fluids, your cleaning components, get everything, put it in a bucket or a container, but all that stuff that you know you're going to need, all of it, in the middle of that room or some location in the room that works, that's efficient, and then go from there. And the reason why this is a great idea is because if you don't do this then you'll find yourself in the middle of a task saying, oh, I forgot that brush, and have to get up and go and get that, and you end up taking trips back and forth, all of which takes time, adds to the complexity and the effort connected with the task, increases your risk. It's just a good practice to do, increases your efficiency, sometimes significantly. And now we come to another culprit who's high on the list of suspects who cause frustration, pain, hate, and discontent when it comes to cleaning. And this one falls into the lifting category, and I'm talking about trash bags. Trash bags tend to be heavy. They invite us to use bad biomechanics and lifting techniques. We tend to get over them and bend and lift on an odd angle. So here's the point that I want to make. Make sure that you are recognizing trash bags and emptying trash bags and transporting trash bags as a risk factor that pings on your risk radar screen. It's all too often the case where we're busy, we're maybe at the end of our cleaning task, we just want to get that garbage out, and we grab and lift, and that bag may be heavier than we thought because of dirty wet rags or whatever in it. And so it's that one little lack of ping on our radar screen that gets us. And boom, now we've got an owie, we've got a jammed joint, we've got something that is adding discomfort and lack of happiness to our world. And so the mere fact of recognizing that risk factor, go, trash bag, and then invoking, bringing the load, all the things that apply to lifting, getting your body to the load, lifting with your legs, don't mix planes of motion, lift, then turn and transport. All of those things particularly apply when lifting those culprits called trash bags. Now, the last thing I want to discuss with you is how you're going to use the information on this video. What we want to do is we want your behavior to change by learning something and saying, okay, that's worth doing, I'm going to start doing it. And it's not really realistic to expect that that's going to happen all in one viewing of this video. And so we know that one learns through repetitive exposure. And so I want to encourage you to use this video as a resource. Come back to it from time to time. You're going to go clean something, say, I'm going to watch that video. Pick one thing you're going to focus on and make it habituated. Become competent at that particular aspect of it. We have a video on developing permanent competencies that we have on the Chiropractic Health channel you might want to watch. But own that, develop that competency, do it one at a time or a couple at a time until you get really good at this. But use this video as a resource. And I promise you that if you do that, you're going to work smarter. You're going to have probably a cleaner environment, or at least as clean as you have now. Not to imply that your environment is not clean. And finally, you're going to have less pain and you're going to have a higher quality of life as a result of that. So I really hope that you will use these tools to your advantage and that you have a very good result with it. Good luck. Thank you for your time and attention today. This Chiropractic Health Channel presentation has been brought to you by the Bennett Clinic. At the Bennett Clinic, we combine chiropractic care, massage therapy, physical rehabilitation, and more to help our patients get off the downhill pain management treadmill to nowhere and live the life that they want and deserve. Find out more about how we at the Bennett Clinic can help you by visiting the Bennett Clinic website at www.bennettclinic.net or call for an appointment at 928-771-9400. For many more health enlightenment moments, just click the subscribe button below. And if you liked what you learned today, please click the like button as well.